Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another Beacon webinar. My name is Kirillo, and I would want to say I will be the host today, but I would probably be just someone who would introduce our host or our speaker. So we have planned a very interesting session today, which is called the crucial role of product ownership analysis practitioners in product success. So we're going to talk about product ownership analysis practice a lot. I'm sure most of you guys have heard about that. And we have a very interesting speaker who has his experience and we will present it to you. But before we do that, let's check out if our chat is working. Yeah, so if you don't mind, please type in the chat like where are you joining from, and maybe like what's the weather there? Where are you joining us from? So I for example, am joining from Dnipro, Ukraine. And the weather here is pretty good. I mean, it's much better than it was a couple of days ago. So let's see if we have something in the chat. Oh, okay. I see it's working. So we have sunny in Krakow, we have Dnipro, we have Prague, we have London. Wow. Okay. Lviv, Ukraine. Okay, Sofia, very good. NYC, perfect. What's the weather in New York? Wrocław, Poland, Bucharest, almost night and 15 degrees. Wow. Oh, I love this. I love this type of weather. I envy. It's not as warm, not as pleasant in Dnipro these days, but also, comparing to what we had, it was okay. So we know that the chat is working. That's perfect. So why don't you also type in the chat if we have such people here, if that is the first Beacon webinar for you, just let us know. If you're like a newcomer, let us know in the chat. I'm just really interested to know. And for guys who are typing in the chat, please make sure you're typing for everyone, and if you're doing that in Zoom, so that everyone can see. Okay, we have several people who are the first timers. Yeah, like newcomers here. We have the second timer. Okay. Okay, glad to have you back. All right, guys. So this is actually not the first webinar of this series. We do have quite a lot of interesting webinars and content on our YouTube channel. So please check it out. Just look it up on YouTube. There's a lot of interesting content. And welcome. I hope you like it here, because we have like people who are like third time here already. I personally see some people in the chat who are like, how you call that, like serial visitor. I would say, yeah. So we have some people who joined like almost every webinar. It's very pleasant to see famous or familiar faces, or rather not faces, but names in the chat. Okay, so let me before I pass the word to our speaker today and introduce our speaker, let me just say a few words about the company SoftServe, because we're like here being very much supported by this company doing this webinar. So I'm actually, I don't remember if I introduced myself. So my name is Kirillo Bilyavsky, and I'm the Business Analysis Office Director in SoftServe. And for those of you who doesn't know this company, it's like a big tech company originated from Ukraine. We're providing services in the various fields like big data, Internet of Things, cloud computing, DevOps, e-commerce, computer science. We should definitely add artificial intelligence here, because we have like already a lot of experience with such projects. So we probably should update the slide for the next webinar. And we have quite good business analysis practice. We have a business analysis office, which was established in 2012, so 12 years ago. And we have around 430 business analysts spread across 12 or even maybe more countries, working on the project and sharing their practices. And also, we are famous for having a very exclusive and elite courses and educational solutions. So I would also present some of those solutions here today. So we have a business analysis foundation course, which is actually going to start in April. This group is just like in Ukrainian language. So probably if you're not like from Ukraine, you would not be interested in that one. In case you are, have a look into that course. I will share the QR code on the next slide that you can scan it. And also, I think Marta have shared the link in the chat, so you can also go to this link and read some more information. So we have this business analysis foundation course, the course for people who just want to start their career in business analysis or maybe switch to business analysis from other profession. Which is very good course. We've been doing that for a lot of time, and we have very much we have a lot of graduates and students who became business analysts, and some of those are my colleagues at SoftServe today. And we do have another course which I'd like to bring your attention to, which is called Certification Bootcamp. And this one is targeted for preparation for certification, IIBA certification, ECBA, CCBA, and CBAP. So we have that course developed strictly for this purpose. All of the trainers are certified business analysts. And again, we have a great track record of a lot of our graduates also passing certification very soon after graduating from this course. This one is in English, so everyone can attend and apply for it. So here's the QR code, which you can scan. If it's easier for you, just use your phones, or you can use the link which we shared in the chat. Okay, so now I think it's time to introduce our speaker today. So let me introduce you Stoyan Ivov Atanasov, who is a senior business analyst, also here at SoftServe, a colleague of mine. He's an experienced professional, has over 9 years in business analysis within IT industry. He guides and supports upcoming business analysts, acts as a mentor and career coach for BAs. He's also a knowledge enthusiast and eager to share insights and promote the BA role, which we will probably hear a lot about today. Apart from being a senior business analyst at SoftServe, Stoyan is an education vice president at IIBA Bulgaria Chapter. I know if we have any visitors from who are IIBA Bulgaria members, please put some comments in the chat. So Stoyan leads educational initiatives for business analysts at IIBA, which we are very proud of as well. And he's a certified business analyst and holds a broad industry experience, passion for day-to-day analysis activities, along with CPOA certification, which is certification in product ownership analysis. And I think we have a lot of people in the audience who may be thinking of obtaining this certification, or maybe already preparing for this certification, or have experience of passing the examination and obtaining the certificate. Also, you can share your experience in the chat and prepare your questions. You can just put it in the chat again, or we have this Q&A box. You can use both options. I know usually we ask people to put the questions in Q&A box, but we know that audience also love to put questions in the chat. Both options are fine. I think Stoyan will look into both sources and answer the questions as he proceeds with his presentation. Okay, we have Desi from IIBA Bulgaria Chapter. Okay, that's great, Desi. Great to have you here. All right, so without further ado, let me pass the floor to Stoyan. And yeah, Stoyan, just take it away. I will stop sharing.
Thank you, Kirill, for the warm welcome. Welcome, everybody. I really like to will speak today about the crucial impact of product ownership analysis in product success. So why I want to speak about this topic, and basically why we want to share a bit more knowledge about this one, is about this new, well, fairly new from maybe 5 years product ownership analysis role that is basically adding more to the product ownership role. So in order to understand a bit more, so in the session today, I will try to give more context of what the product ownership analysis practitioner role entails, what the difference maybe, or actually what is common between the role of the business analyst and the product owner, and also how they can use this product ownership analysis toolset or guidelines for product success. And basically, I will share some examples. I will share some techniques, because the guide of product ownership analysis contains about 30 techniques who are based from business analyst body of knowledge guide, or from other agile analysis certification guide. So they're all like practices of the day-to-day work of the business analyst or the product owner or even the product manager role. So I will try to show you these kind of techniques, and also at the end I'll speak a bit more about the certificate in product ownership analysis, if there are any of you who are interested of taking that, what it is about, and also during the presentation I will stop here and say, okay, this is included in, and this is included in the exam that I took a couple of months ago, so it's quite fresh for me. So I wanted to share with you all. So I'm going to start with a quote here from John F. Kennedy about taking risks. So he's saying, or he used to say, there are risks and costs to action, but they are far less than the long-range risks of comfortable inaction. Why I want to start with taking risks? In our day-to-day work, we have to take decisions, or we have to make decisions. So making these decisions, we don't necessarily know with 100% certainty how these decisions will affect the product, the project, or even our life. So we can definitely do the analysis. We can definitely make sure, yeah, if I take this decision, it will lead to this outcome, but we're not sure 100%. So there is risk in taking those decisions. And we every day take those risks when making a decision, whether it's small, like 100 small decisions, or one big one. So it's better to take risks, because without taking risks, we cannot proceed and evolve into a successful product. But we don't want to be in the position of comfortable inaction, as Kennedy mentioned. So in order to progress, risks have to be taken on a daily basis. So actually, I want to ask you here in the chat. So we were mentioning about the business analyst role. We were mentioning about the product ownership analysis role. Could you please give me your role in what do you do if you're from an IT sector, or maybe you are from the IT sector, but what role you are particularly in your product, project, or company, so that we know that first off you hear me well and you respond, and then to focus to see what we can focus on as well. So if you can type it in the chat. Perfect. So yeah, proxy product owner is something that we'll take. Perfect. BAs, product owners. Awesome. So we're, yeah, BA sometimes product owner. Perfect. So I think we've hit the target for that presentation, or you have done it beforehand. But basically, I want to switch your attention to, okay, we want to start with the differentiation between the roles, and then we'll see what's common and how the new role of product ownership analysis or product ownership analysis practitioner, it's not actually a role, but a skill set or a tool set that enhances your particular role. So business analysts will focus on translating why to how. They will manage requirements. They will, in most of the cases, sit in the middle between the development team and the client. The product owners, however, they are customer advocates. They determine why and what. So they're kind of building the product vision and roadmap according to the product managers, or with product managers as well. And the product ownership analysis combines the two roles to some extent, but it's mainly focused on engagement of stakeholders, problem and process understanding, decision making, and the most important part, adding value. So we all add value as our different roles that we take in a product or a project, but the product ownership analysis is there, or the product ownership analysis practitioner is there to add value to a product and ensure product is successful. Yeah, sorry, quite big. So I don't like these slides with a lot of text, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I put in just in case for that, but the effectiveness of the product ownership analysis basically is about making and sharing a clear product vision across all stakeholders, whether internal or external, making sure that support is maintained throughout our stakeholders, and all stakeholders, even though your development team, your client understands the business context and the viability of the solution. We, as product ownership analysis practitioners, we want to make effective decisions, prioritize needs, and we value delivery. We also ensure transparency. We validate value through product build activity. We want to quickly learn and adapt. Basically, most of these things, I think, and I'm sure that you do on a daily basis. So it's not something specific new for you. We are going to focus on the actual framework that builds the product ownership analysis and the 7 pillars or the seven main pillars of the product ownership analysis framework. And actually here, product ownership, as we said, basically product ownership is a role that was defined in Scrum, right? So it's an agile role that was defined in Scrum, and basically business analyst role doesn't really make it or takes place in a Scrum delivery, though we try to incorporate it. So this product ownership analysis practitioner extends or builds on the product ownership concepts that were introduced in Scrum. I will be looking at the chat and the questions and answers while we go through our presentation. So please make sure to input any questions on the particular frames that we have. Otherwise, we'll have a Q&A session at the end as well, so that I will try to answer all the questions. So the main 7 pillars of the product ownership analysis framework are applying foundational concepts, cultivate customer intimacy, engage the whole team, make an impact, deliver often, learn fast, obsess about value. So a word about each one of them, and we'll focus on them in the next slide. So applying foundational concepts, we want to make sure that we have, whenever we're trying to build something, for me, in my experience, most of the times I have joined in the pre-sales or delivery discovery stage of a project, and basically you start in a white canvas. So I like to use Miro board for that one, and I like to start on a completely blank Miro board and do a client interview, start from there and capture as many information as I can in order to start building that foundation with the team, and also trying to make sure that foundation, that concrete or bricklaying later on is going to be proper and useful for the success, and actually drive the success forward. Because without a proper foundation, you cannot build a skyscraper, right? So then cultivating customer intimacy. So we need to make sure that we put ourselves into the customer's shoes. Of course, you've heard that many times. We'll focus more on that later. And we need to make sure we empathize with the customer in order to make sure that the product that we're going to build for them is going to be a success for them. So it's going to be a success for us. Doesn't matter if you're in a product company or a service-oriented company, like when a product company outsources their service to another company as a service. So even though if your clients are the end users that are going to be using that product that you're building, or even if your clients are some intermediary that they will have clients and they will have end users, it doesn't really matter. You still need to make sure that customer satisfaction is met and that you have that close connection to your customer. Then we move to engaging the whole team. We want to make sure that all of the team is engaged into the foundational concept. We want to make an impact as well. We want to make sure that our features that we're building make an impact for a successful project. We want to deliver often. Delivering often is key for the success, because with that approach, we can, it's not like a big bang production deployment, and then from that point on, a year later, nothing happens. We want to deliver often. We want to also learn fast from feedback from clients and customers in order to adapt and release at the end more value. So we obsess about value. The most important thing to take off, like the one important word from this whole presentation, is value. So product ownership analysis practitioners, they obsess about value. We'll focus more on that in a bit. So applying foundational concept, we already mentioned, we want to lay out the concrete here, and define key product principles. We want to understand what our product strategy is, align our product to the strategy as well, and also make sure that we have the proper artifacts in the beginning in order for these artifacts to be a single source of truth later on. Also, we want to make sure that our team members are set up for that success. So we need to want to have a structured work. We need to drive that success going forward. And basically, here we have the techniques. So as I mentioned, techniques, we have like 30 techniques in the guide of product ownership analysis that are being closely discussed there and closely observed with some practical examples. So I will outline a few, and then we'll focus on one for each and every of our pillars here. So we have visioning. We start with visioning and how the product will look like. We want to understand the mission and vision of the product. We want to go and focus on interviews with the clients, because that's one of the best ways to understand clients' pain points, what they want to have built, or interviews with the end users, like some market analysis as well, that we want to see what the best product fit for them and for their needs. We'll focus on the business model canvas in the next slide as a start for our blank canvas for product implementation, or for product vision and scope. And then we also want to understand personas, and we want to also capture what are our main stakeholders, so do some stakeholder list and mapping. So business model canvas is a technique that is being used in the product ownership analysis practitioner role quite vastly. I'm just going to see if there is a... Okay. Thanks, Kirill. So we'll lean a bit forward. So I'm hoping that the voice is now better. Good. So yeah, the business model canvas will describe how enterprise creates, delivers, and captures value from and for its customers. And also it serves as a blueprint or the beginning of the implementation and product strategy, while explaining also or supporting the financial feasibility of the project. So we want to start with outlining key partners, activities, and resources. We want to understand the value proposition and outline it here. Also, what are the customer relationships? What kind of relationships should we have with customers? What channels can we use, like marketing channels, other channels for reaching out your end customers? Then you want to specify who are your customers, who are you creating value for, and what is important for them. And we also want to make sure from the financial part we covered. So we want to have a cost structure and revenue streams. So what are going to be our revenue streams for that product or from the service that we're building that is going to be sold later on? Because if we're not, so not that if we're not doing it for the revenue, but a successful product or project is the one that is being purchased. So the one that creates revenue and profit, not the one that is the best product ever and nobody uses it. Or even everybody uses it and it doesn't create any money for the person who has developed it. So that's for the business model canvas. I like to use this technique again in the beginning with the interviews and then also stakeholder mapping to outline as an initial step the process. So next part. So cultivating customer intimacy. So we need to make sure that we focus on the customer as I mentioned. We want to build empathy. We want to get personal, and we want to observe how the customer behaves and even make some notes about each one of your stakeholders so that you can manage them better, and you can also manage the relationship between the different stakeholders as well, because this is a quite important part of the process. You want also to learn from your customers and apply these learnings that you have done. So you also want to reiterate what the problems are, make sure that you understand them properly, and evolve from those pain points or problems that the customer is facing to a solution. In most of the time, we as business analysts or product owners need to serve as consultants for the business, for our stakeholders like C-level management, or for our clients who are our stakeholders. So with our expertise and validating these problems, we want to make sure that we are making the connection with the client as well. So use techniques for that customer intimacy are again personas. So we want to make sure that we know the personas that are going to be working on the tool that we're building, or whether it's like a application for e-commerce, like let's say e-commerce platform. There are different type of personas there. Let's say admin role, that there is the end user, etc., etc. Empathy map is a new interesting technique that I like to use. I will show it in a bit. We'll focus on it later on. Mind mapping as well. Survey and questionnaire here for the client to understand better their needs. Customer journey mapping. Basically, in the beginning, I also like to start in a customer journey map to outline what the desired outcome is, if it's a front-end application that needs to be built. And if you have a designer, perfect, great. In most of the cases, in my experience, there weren't many UI UX designers in smaller projects. Maybe in the bigger enterprise projects there are. But yeah, you want to outline with a simple, again, Miro board, paint, even whatever, a customer journey map, just as an outline. So the empathy map by Canvas. Again, this is also what was on the exam. For instance, some of the questions on the exam at the end were regarding what type of technique you would use in such and such situation. So it's quite important to focus on the particular technique while we go through the guide. So empathy map canvas is also used for gaining a deeper insight into the experience and emotions of customer. So we start with our goal, like who are we empathizing with? Is it the end customer? Is it our project manager even? Is it our C-level management that want to introduce a new product that they want to get revenue for? What do our stakeholders or the people who are empathizing with, what do they need to do? So then what do they see? Like, what do they see on the market? What do they see? What do they observe? What do they say? Like, what do we hear them say about the product that they want to get built, or the problem that they have for the product that they want to build? What do they do and what do they hear? So what do they do about it? Do they do anything about it? And what do they hear from other people saying, if it's an existing product, like a feedback, direct feedback, or if it's a new product that people that they are thinking about, if people are complaining about the problems. And finally, we structure these within the pains and gains. So what are the fears, frustrations of the client? what are their pains, and what would be their gain from a particular product, or what do they want to see in a product, for example. So that whole exercise is quite interesting, and it helps provide clarity and shared understanding on how to actually go to and delight the customers or the end users. So it's quite an interesting technique. Have a look at it. We proceed with the whole engaging of the whole team. So I will stop here and see if there are any questions in the chat that I can answer. Not at the moment, maybe at the end. Yeah, engaging the whole team then. So we engage the whole team in order to share goals and empower them. So what I like to do from my experience is I like to mention, so imagine that we're in a Scrum project, and you're a business analyst or a product owner, and you want to explain to your developers how a particular feature should work, right? So in order to do that, you need their full engagement and focus. And I would like every time when I present a new feature or a new story, that to be synced with and linked to the overall concept. So why is this feature important? What we will achieve with it? Showing the full picture. We need this because A, B, C, etc., etc. So each and every time we know that the team is engaged and they know what they're building, because how often have we had the situation where developers just code and then they do the pull request, they share it to the test team, and for instance, they code according to your exact specifics in the user story, but something that you have missed or something that has been missed from the user journey that is everybody can notice, is not developed just because it's not exclusively mentioned in that user story, for instance. So we want them to be your next line of defense, even in addition to the testers, and that's happening with engagement. And also having a shared vision, aligning them, make sure that they understand what they're building, and making them proud about what they're building. Of course, there are projects and projects, but if you see the whole picture, you're more likely to like it a bit what you're building as your feature is part of the proper part of that picture. And then you want to have analysis of your stakeholders, so that you want to see whom you can empower and who are your main decision makers that you can make an impact on. The commonly used techniques here are definition concepts. They were present in the exam, like definition of ready, definition of done, and definition of delivery. Usually these concepts are defined in the beginning of the project with accordance to the project manager. So what means a definition of ready for a user story or for a feature to be considered taking for implementation? What means definition of done for that feature, and what it would be a definition of delivery for a particular feature or even epic or feature. Then collaborative game. It's really enjoyable to have some collaborative games in use, so that people could to some point have fun and while working. We'll see if that makes sense in the next slide. Then we have value modeling, visioning, we mentioned about it, and rating matrix basically stakeholder analysis as well. So about collaborative games, I will mention the 3 games that I have previously used. Some of them are not games, but some of them are. And then I will see if there are any questions I can answer, and we can proceed. So they're used to encourage participants to collectively build trust and also build team spirit. We have team building activities as collaborative games. We have prioritization games and problem solving games. So 3 I have outlined here. So $100 test. $100 test is a prioritization collaborative game that basically you give your key stakeholders $100 and you give them a list of features that you have agreed on previously. So they each put their $100 to their most valued feature, like they put maybe 50, they put 60, we can see with that technique a lot of how the stakeholders really think. So they can input $100 on one feature and we don't care about the rest, right? Or we can put in 2020 on all 5 features. So everything is priority. That means nothing is priority, and so on and so forth. But in that game, it's really interesting, and people get to know a bit more. We get to know a bit more why they want that decision to happen. So that provokes a lot of conversation, and it's quite an interesting game to use. Prioritization game again. Then we have collaborative brainstorming, like brainstorming, but with more people. And the importance here is to have an engaged team again, because if you have like 10 people on the meeting and you speak with only 3, it doesn't make sense. So that collaborative brainstorming is basically somebody suggests something and then nominates the next person to suggest something as well. And even though some of the people might be annoyed that they're chosen, sometimes their ideas can really provoke unseen outcome later on, which is quite useful. And then elevator pitch. Basically, what's the elevator pitch? Usually, if you have watched Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, about how you want to pitch an idea and win a project. So that's basically 30-second pitch that when a person goes into an elevator with a C-level person, they pitch their idea, and by the end of their, let's say, 10-story journey, they agree to that and they get the deal for that. So with the elevator pitch, this is again a technique to solve or to try and explain briefly what the value from the product is going to be. And you can explain that to your team if they're not certain about it, or to try and provoke conversation, or to show the bigger picture. And you can ask any other team member to try and do that with their own words, which again creates an interesting side of stories. Okay. Okay, I have a question here. I'll stop for a second and focus on a couple of questions, and we will continue. Can you tell a story of how some of those techniques help you in a real project environment? Yeah, so so we have a couple of more techniques that I most frequently use. I have used this $100 test, and it's basically provoked a lot of conversation. And I really enjoy using it because it's a different way of prioritization with the most commonly used prioritization, such as Moscow method, which we'll focus on in a bit, and which maybe t-shirt sizing, we have the Eisenhower matrix and others. But this really, with this $100 test, it really we really understand the main stakeholders' way of thinking and what they want to prioritize, and that way it's really easy to deprioritize some of the features that they think they're important, but they aren't really in the case. So that collaborative game worked for me well. I really like to use in the beginning when I collect requirements, customer journey map. So creating a customer journey for me is pivotal and quite important in the product success, because each and every client, most of the clients that we would have, they're not familiar with IT development processes, right? Or software development lifecycle. So they would want some visualization. And this customer journey, even if it's really rigid, you would definitely show to them how the customer would experience the tool or the web application or the mobile application or whatever you're trying to build for them. So yeah, that's to some extent the story. I will share a bit more from personal experience further down the line, Howard. So thanks for the question. I will answer one more question and we will continue. So I'll type in yes. Looking ahead, how do you see the role of the product owner analysis evolving with emerging technology? So definitely, we are focusing more and more into AI. So I have started to use ChatGPT in some of my daily activities in terms of creating some diagrams or even for caption of this presentation, for instance, to to get the focus of the public. But yeah, I think so. Some of these techniques are going to open a lot of questions, and with the $100 test, for instance, I'm focusing on that, but you cannot really do that with Gen AI maybe, but we can use ChatGPT, other tools with that to help us really do some analysis based on the use case that we have. So we can ask for help with diagrams, with techniques, but the main importance here would be to have the means and have the experience of utilizing those techniques and communicating with the client. So it's definitely I would definitely continue using those, and we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping that this answer satisfies you for now. Okay, I will then get back to the questions in a second. So thank you for questions. I'll continue on with those. I will go briefly because we're kind of running out of time. So to go to not briefly through the other points, but I want to also focus on the certification process. So make an impact. With making an impact, we want to make sure that we delight customers. We want to make sure that we're adding to the product success by having nice features, having features that apply to targeted customers. We want to also assess the product market fit, whether our product is fit for the market that we're entering in. I will share a bit more on that in a second. And we also want to make sure that, we have to have like a defined product strategy in order to have that impact factor raised. So commonly used techniques are observation here. So observing, taking notes, making sure that we are vigilant for the client and for our clients. Product market fit, I'll focus in a second. Interviews with the client, customer journey map, I already mentioned, document analysis, look them up later. Product market fit. So yeah, with the product market fit, I want to emphasize here a bit more because it's quite an important technique, and it's important in terms of product management and product ownership. So we have foundational steps in building a successful product with understanding what the problems are. So we have a problem statement here. Then we have a solution, like a potential solution. What would be the value from that solution? Who are our potential customers? What is the landscape of our competitors? Who are our competitors? How do they sell their product? A little bit of benchmarking here, which I'll focus on later. And also, what are the risks associated with all of these assumptions, and if there are also assumptions to consider here, and risk factors. And important here is the metrics. So in the exam also they're discussing some of the metrics, what they mean. Some of these, like for instance, the metrics are quite important as well for the product market fit, and also for I had a question from before even the session started, like how does success being measured, or how is it varying from product to product or from project to project? And my answer is yes. So success varies from project to project depending on the key measures, like factors and key performance indicators. So some of them here are mentioned, like 40% rule. So examples for industry or examples for websites. For 40% rule states that only 40% of your users consider these features a must-have. We have churn rate, so basically, or retention rate, so they can be switched. So churn rate is basically the rate or when the time that your users stop using your product, or when they unsubscribe from your product, when you lose them as a client. So you want to calculate churn rate. NPS score here is net performer score. How eager are your clients or your end users to promote your product to other end users within the industry, and then we have some growth rate, market share, some financial indicators here. These metrics here are also nice to have if you're building like a website or an app, like bounce rate, time on site, pages per visit. We have a lot of technologies now that measure that and give us statistics, returning visitors or retention rate, and customer lifetime value. So product market fit is really used in startups, but I like to use it with any product to see whether that product, when we build it, will fit the market needs. Because as I mentioned in the beginning, nobody wants to build a product that is perfect and nobody uses, right? Okay, I'll go through the deliver. Let's have a look at maybe answering one more question. Okay. Okay, what's the difference between definition of delivery and definition of done? So I'll answer this one. Definition of done is basically what is needed for a story, a user story, to be considered as done. Definition of a delivery would be what is needed for a whole feature or a bigger amount of work. Like for instance, even if you specify like the minimum viable product, what is going to be the definition of delivery for that minimum viable product to be considered done? Comments from you to collective responsibility means there's no particular person responsible. Yes, but that's basically where the product ownership analysis practitioner makes sure that there is a responsibility. So collective responsibility in terms of the team responsibility, but again, there is the responsibility. So we don't want here to at the end when something goes wrong to finger point, but there is the responsibility of the team. So everybody is vouching for their input when they're doing development, when they're doing testing. Of course, at the end, there will be higher up stakeholders that take the responsibility, but that's what I mean by what is meant by collective responsibility in these kind of levels. Okay, thanks for these comments and questions. I'll continue now and we'll get back to the Q&A session. Deliver often. So we want to deliver often. We want to make sure that we, so in most of our projects, in most of my projects, I have made sure that we start with an MVP. So I now work with a company where MVP is kind of, not with a company, but with a client, where the minimum viable product is kind of blurred. So, and maybe most of our clients want to have a product described as minimum viable, but at the end it turns like a fully functional product. So we need to be very transparent with them, like what do we envision as MVP, what the scope of an MVP could be, and to that way with an MVP scope, then we can proceed forward with next phases like minimum marketable product, we have minimum lovable product, and so on and so on. So yeah, we want to specify that and deliver often after MVP release is a must. Plan the iteration, so managing backlog. So in order to deliver often, these kind of techniques are being used. So real option, this is a technique that basically for making decisions. I won't stop on that, but definitely look it in the guide if you're planning the certification. Story mapping, we want to, maybe most of you know how to map user stories to the features initially agreed. Prioritization, I mentioned the, for prioritization, I mentioned the collaborative game $100 test. I also will mention a couple of more things. Prototyping, if you have a UI UX designer, that's perfect to have it. Otherwise, customer journey map will do to some extent. that function, and you want your backlog refinement sessions to happen as frequently as possible. So a couple of things for prioritization. We talked about the Moscow technique: must have, should have, could have, won't have. And basically, I like to combine that with the t-shirt sizing, not necessarily t-shirt sizing converting into story points within Scrum, but it can be, so t-shirt sizing can mean also time for delivering in some fixed price or fixed time project. So why I want to mix up prioritization technique as Moscow method with effort estimation technique as t-shirt sizing is because a must-have feature, or okay, a should-have feature that is Excel or that is quite big to deliver could be worse than a could-have feature that is nice to have, but it's an excess amount of effort. So a could-have feature might add more value than a should-have feature over time. So in initial first win situations, let's say, in the initial phase of a product, depending on the feature, of course, but that's why I want to combine these two, and also other prioritization techniques are there, but yeah, these are the ones that I like to use. After delivering often, we go to learn fast. So we want to make sure that we have some measurements here and learn from them. So some metrics we receive. So that's probably after the release. If you look at that framework actually, and compare it to the software development lifecycle, so we'll have first three in the analysis and discovery phases, and then make an impact, deliver often, learn fast, obsess about value. There will be mostly about development, testing, implementation, and maintenance part of the software development lifecycle. So learn fast. We want to assess what is delivered, learn from our mistakes maybe, or adapt quicker, and go forward with a better feature next time. Metrics and KPIs, as I mentioned earlier, such as the net performance score can be positive here for us to learn. Like if our users recommend our product to somebody else, how often are we losing users, why we're using users. And then Kano analysis will focus on in a second, value stream mapping, balance scorecard, benchmarking. Again, few techniques from the guide that are interesting to be looked into in more detail. And focus on Kano analysis. This is a recent technique that I learned about that I like to use in some situations. Not very often, but I have used it once or twice. So this technique is used to understand which product characteristics will provide a delighter for the customer, will provide an initial, like a bigger differentiation in the market, and will be satisfied for the customer. So here we have this curve that fulfills the basic needs. In the x-axis we have satisfaction. In the x-axis we have fulfillment, and so not fulfilled as feature or fulfilled as feature. In the y-axis we have dissatisfaction and satisfaction. So we want to cover the basic needs of a user, maybe in the MVP part. We want to have the performance needs of a user, so nicer features, not only the basics, and there are also the delighters. So features that will make the person who uses the tool or the product fall in love with. So that's how we differentiate those, and basically with the client on a workshop, we can specify those so that we know which features we can focus on. We can try to prioritize some of the delighters for the market. And if we're not in the best position, we need to just go with the basic needs and performance needs. No need for delighters for now if we're in a tough situation with a client, as there are a lot of such in building towards project success. Okay, then we have the final one, which is obsess about value, and I will check after. So I'll do the Q&A after, as we're also closer to the end of our meeting. So I'll read your questions and answer them as far as possible. So obsessing about value. As I told you, what we want to take away from this session is the value output. So how we evolve the product, how we assess the market needs, and what value do we add with our product, what value do we add to the customers and to the end users. And how to optimize the value of the delivery as well. So commonly used techniques for that would be real option. Again, I won't focus on it, but it's quite an interesting technique. Value stream mapping, value proposition canvas, which will focus on minimum viable product, risk analysis, and management. So we start with the value. So minimum viable product is the base step of adding value, because from zero we move to a product that is created, and it's all maybe in some situations already starting to add value to the customer. So I'll focus on the value proposition canvas now. So here we want to, again, we're coming from the pains and gains, right? So we have pains of the customer, gains, what the customer would gain, and customer jobs. So basically the value proposition here would be this part with the rectangle that basically highlights what are going to be the pain relievers, such as features later on for the pain of the user, what are going to be the gain creators for user to gain, imminent value of the product, what their benefits are and what they can expect as benefits, and why should a customer choose this product. So again, we're adding value here in pain relievers, gain creators, and products and services that will give you the full picture and will target particular customers. So it's again a technique that it can be used with others and is good to visualize for key stakeholders what the benefits of a product could be. So that's about the value proposition canvas. And we move to the actual certification process. But before that, I will see if there is anything in the chat. Okay. How do you evaluate the quality of guide to product ownership book? So the quality of the guide to product ownership analysis, so it is I like it because it has a lot of case studies. So inside you don't only have the techniques as I listed here, but you have also practical case studies in practical situations and when and how to apply those kind of techniques. It has a lot of applications, applicable versions of these different techniques, and they're very specific to each part of these 7 pillars that I mentioned before. So I think utilizing that guide or reading through that guide, understanding that guide, and trying to apply a particular technique is quite useful in your day-to-day business life, because of course you can do. I don't want to have to be in the position to say, yeah, there are a lot of techniques that are being used, but I use like 50, 100 of them, or 50,000 of them. But there are significant techniques that can help and show and visualize to the client what they want in order for you to win a pre-sale, for you to go through a discovery process and outline a better or a successful minimum viable product scope that will later be developed. So yeah, I really like it. I recommend reading it, even if you don't take the exam as well. Do you have some frameworks, some templates in your company considering implementing the POA framework in lieu projects or for real-time scenarios? The goal of my question is to get your opinion on how the POA framework is actionable considering BA PO job. So that's where it comes. So the POA framework is applicable both to BA and PO roles, even to product managers. So templates in my company, I have, I don't know how many, a lot. So we have quite a good library of different templates, and it's being added on and added on as we go. So with case studies, with different templates and updates even of these templates. So each one of these techniques are being also shared additionally internally with our business analysis office. So it's also the means for any future business analyst or product owner to utilize those templates. And yeah, I definitely recommend using those. POA framework is actionable. Definitely, it's actionable. The most important thing from that is the techniques that you can use, and the case studies in that guide. It's about 300 pages, I think. It really shows when and in which situations these techniques could be used. So yeah, I'm two hands for that product ownership analysis framework. That's why I got to that point to get certified onto that on that certification. So I will share a bit of the details about the exam. In the meantime, can you? So I'll also trigger a poll for us. If you can answer those questions from the poll, I will then discuss the exam and I will go through the question and answer session. So I'm launching the poll, and if you can fill it in, that would be great. Thank you very much while I speak about the exam. So as I mentioned, the guide consists of 300 pages. First off, it describes the role of the product ownership analysis, how it entails, the common things between business analyst and product ownership role. And also after, it focuses on each of these 7 pillars that I mentioned, and it specifies what techniques are used for these pillars. And actually at the end, we have about 30 techniques that are written in detail and how they are being used. And I don't know, maybe it has like about 50 case studies that is part of any technique or any chapter. So the case studies is quite important and quite interesting for me to see how these techniques can be used in real life. Then 60 multiple choice questions, 90 minutes duration. It's an online proctored exam, so I would suggest and recommend if you are taking it. The thing is that you can purchase that exam, and you can take it 1 year from its purchase. So that's probably that's actually how I did it. So I took the exam in the last month possible from my purchase because of other project work, but yeah, that didn't stop me. And maybe for preparation, it will be, I don't know, depending on your experience, I would say that it's a big read, but it's quite interesting. So maybe, I don't know, two weeks of sporadic reading every day would be enough. In some cases, I have heard people passing it for a couple of days, eating the pages and taking it. But yeah, the important thing to take off here is it's an online proctored exam, so you can schedule it even from today to from now to 1 hour after this time. So it's quite flexible. There are times you can reschedule even if you have scheduled a date and you cannot make it, you can reschedule in advance, like 3 days. The most important thing and why I took it is that there isn't any need of recertification. So most of the certificates that IIBA have are you have to recertify every year. I want to have that's a good option as well, because you kind of get into those CDUs and PDUs that from different webinars such as this one, and to get engaged into the BA world, and you are being checked maybe constantly. But I really like certification that you pass one time and then I don't say you forget about it, but you have the certificate. If you're thinking it's useful, you use those techniques on a daily basis. So it's definitely a useful read. So that's why I'd recommend taking it. So what did I miss? So online proctored exam. The proctor will make you remove all of the details or all of unnecessary stuff around you. So I even, had to pick up my laptop and show everywhere around me. I would recommend taking it in a nice, quiet room somewhere in, I don't know, your home or in your office, if you can. But yeah, you don't have to be. There shouldn't be any other people in the room. There shouldn't be anything around you, such as phones, etc., etc. So it's quite strict from that perspective because it's being passed online. And yeah, that's so. Again, most of the questions. So there were a lot of questions regarding definitions. So definition of delivery, definition of done, definition of ready. A lot of questions about which technique would you use in this situation. I remember. So these techniques that I was showing you right now, they all came up on the questionnaire on the exam. And as I mentioned, the most important thing is obsessing about value or taking the value part of it. So any question that comes, so in maybe 60 questions, like 30 questions are somehow related to value. So adding value or creating value for a customer, etc., etc. So that's where we stand with the certification process. Of course, any questions I will be happily able to answer. I think we're on time, so I have a lot of time for questions. So I will go to the question and answer section and I will try to answer as they come, but please feel free to ask any questions related to that. Okay, the next question is, could you share from an anonymous person, could you share a case study or an example where product ownership analysis significantly turned around a product market success? Yes, I can. So I started in software a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years from now, and I instantly, maybe a month from my starting point, I started working with my client. To this date, I work with that client, and it's a big consulting company, one of the biggest in the world. And basically, they did not have any. So even from that perspective, I was already into the different techniques of business analyst body of knowledge and agile analysis extension guide. So I was actually brought into a project to try and fix it. And the project was such a mess that I had to go in and work on it and manage the first release of an MVP, but there weren't even anything to release. I mean, there weren't even any evidence what to release. It was so messed up, and in the span of 3 months with the proper, so I had to work with the key stakeholders to turn this around. And how I did this is I applied the foundational concept. So we needed to have definition of done, definition of ready, a user story template, and I wanted to make sure that everything that's committed to a client is already discussed with the technical team, because people were committing everything to the client that, yeah, this can happen, and in some of the cases it couldn't happen for the timeframes that they wanted. So I think we've all been into that situation, but the way to turn that around is to apply basic concepts and outline to the stakeholder that there is a problem at the moment and we need to work in sync to fix it. So we all need to make sure that we take ownership, that we take that collaborative ownership that we mentioned, to make sure that the project is successful. Otherwise, it started to go down and it was already a mess. So in order to make it successful, so even to share with you, so on the day of the release, the client shared 30 points for improvement. So 30 points for improvement. So we had to go on a prioritization session with them and say, none of this can happen before the release because we already are in the release train process. Then we can prioritize it in the first sprint or next sprint after the release, X amount of these 30 improvements. And afterwards, we can plan another, phase for that one. So And that kind of structured way of working, at first they weren't liking it because all of the clients are working on tight time frames, but at the end they saw that this kind of structure and answer to everything that they had in mind were turning around the project into a successful. And it ends as a success story at the end. So after 3 months, we released 2 more releases with upgraded features. Client was starting to see revenue from their platform, so it was quite good as an outcome. And yeah, it was very, very positive. So that I can share as an example for applying foundational concepts, cultivate customer intimacy, delivering often, a value obsessing. So all of these comprised were turning around a product into a successful, a project and a product. I hope you're happy with the answer. We'll continue with Howard's question. How often can we contribute to product market fit in outsourced environment? Okay, yeah. So as I mentioned, we in SoftServe, for instance, we are an outsourcing company, right? So we are a service-oriented company, but our goal is to be considered as consultants. So we make sure that we gain that trust with the client, and we share knowledge from previous experience, and we also want to make sure that we are helping them with that product market fit analysis, because in some of the cases they might have not considered something. Okay, they might have done some market research, market analysis, but with that particular technique, we can see some key factors that they might have forgotten about, or if they don't consider product market fit at all, like the client that are building the product, we can easily share with them how this would make an impact for their product if we evaluate, the product that we're building, how fit it is for the market and what is the market at the moment. So I wouldn't say quite often, but in some cases where you have positioned yourself as a nice, experienced business analyst or proxy product owner. Yeah. How does getting a CPOA certification really change the game for a BA in the tech field? So it's not a certification that changes the game, to be honest. It's the techniques that you learn and you enhance your vision, or you broaden your horizons with that kind of approach with the 7 pillars which I mentioned. So we all know, and we all have worked with challenging clients. We all know how to handle different clients probably, but maybe we don't have the proper means how to show something when we want to win a client. So in some of the cases, these techniques really help, or with the collaborative games, it helps strengthen up the team's morale. It's quite good. So CPOA certification to change the game for the BAs. If you're speaking in a more global fashion, it basically we want to see when a product company outsources their product development to a service-oriented company, for instance, these certifications endorsed by IIBA serve as a proof that these business analysts or product owners that will act as either proxy or will be hired to be product owners will be according top standards. So that's also an important point to take. What are the first steps? So yeah, I think we have some more time. If I'm hoping that because we've run out of time, but I will try to answer all of the questions. Let me mark them as done so that we see. Okay, good. What are the first steps we should take after attending this webinar to implement POA techniques in a current project? So first step is what I would do if I have been on a webinar where I have been presented with techniques. I would go and search those techniques either in YouTube or in online, I will see, if I have access to Miro, they have templates, so I can see those templates. I can try to implement them for a project that I'm working on. So even if you have defined a project, if even the project is in maintenance stage, you can go in and practice some of these techniques to see, okay, what if now the client comes to me with those requirements? What would I do? What can I do? How to start on a blank canvas and start from that point on, and to see whether you have the full information on your project or product, or you have discovered it at a later stage, and why you have discovered it at a later stage. So that's one thing. The other thing is I would go to the IIBA.org site. I will go to certifications, and I would download the guide for product ownership analysis to read it and just go through the techniques. And I would take an exam if I'm interested in that. And the last question, in the context of the Agile methodology, could you discuss how product ownership analysis impacted the development of the app, particularly in prioritizing its features for a faster market release? How did these techniques help in addressing customer feedback more efficiently? Okay, let me think about it a bit. And maybe some of you are waiting for me to close it, but I want to take the time for answering this question because it's interesting. So how it impacted the development of the app? Oh, for prioritizing the features for a faster market release, I mean, these techniques for prioritization, like most called the collaborative games, for me worked really well to understanding what really is a priority and what isn't. Because in most of the cases, I had examples where we're giving, I'm giving a list of features to the client and asking them to, okay, and I explain to them, the Moscow prioritization method, and I'm asking them to put in M, S, C, and W, and they put everything like must have. So from this must have, I ask them again, okay, from this must have, what really isn't needed there? So they put in one feature to be could have, everything else must have. So it's kind of helping where, so in that case, if you only know that technique, or if you only have experience with that technique, to add more value to it. So to try and t-shirt sizes, there is also the option to discuss, these three amigos. There is this technique of, discussing those features with the product owner, tech team, and solution architect. I think these were the three actors where you basically evaluate each and every feature that you want to implement, and you also specify what is the business uncertainty and what is the technical complexity, so that also this kind of t-shirt sizing of technical complexity and business uncertainty would help the client try to prioritize, because if they know, okay, this is a must-have, but it will take XL amount of days or XL amount of effort to do it, maybe we need to deprioritize because it's not that a must-have. Whether in other situations where you don't know how big is a particular feature, you might put everything as a must, or you might deprioritize a more important one. So I think these techniques really help in prioritization. In addressing customer feedback more efficiently, yeah, I mean, when you start using a lot of surveys, a lot of questionnaires, a lot of brainstorming techniques, value proposition, and these canvases that I shared with you, it's all about visualization of the problems and pain points and gains and concerns of the client. And also, we can have a client feedback backlog where it also is taken into a prioritization session and can be feedback instantly, because most of these, let's say, client feedback can be picked up at the next sprint if you're working on a Scrum or Kanban approach. So they definitely help addressing customer feedback if you're using the right technique. I mean, some of them are, which we went through, are more about initiation of the product delivery. Some of them are more in the later stage. So, yeah. Okay, and then last question. Anything in the chat? No? Good. Last question for today. Anyway, if you have any further questions, you can find me on LinkedIn, ping me, or yeah, you can find me to ask any further questions for that certification process. I'll be happy to help with any further insight. On my recent project, we faced challenges in aligning our product development with real user needs, leading to multiple iterations. How can obtaining a CPOA certification empower me to better navigate the challenges, ensuring that our products are both viable and meet market demand? Okay, let me take my time to understand the question. Okay. Well, empowering you will broaden your knowledge base about what is possible and what is not possible, what additional technique you can use. I mean, it's not the certification, but reading through that, and of course, if you take the exam, it would mean that you will prepare more, so you know more and you learn more. But for you to be empowered to better navigate the challenges, most of them come from experience, but the others with knowledge. So gaining that knowledge will definitely give you more security from a perspective of, yeah, I have seen that. Maybe this technique could help here, with this use cases of that guy that I was telling you about. So I think it's definitely going to help you to navigate it through such challenges, aligning with product development, aligning to market needs, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think this is my answer for now. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Howard, as well. Good. I think this is the end of our session for today.
Yes, thank you so much, Stoyan. I think it was very interesting session. We had a lot of questions. Thank you for bringing all this information to us. We did go a little bit over time, but I think it was worth it. So thank you so much. And thank you everyone who've been listening to the session. And please drop some comments if you're watching it on YouTube, and how you like the session, and maybe if you have some more questions, Stoyan have offered to find him in LinkedIn, which is a great idea, I think. So you can do just that. So thank you so much, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.